Let's talk about Model Context Protocol, or MCP for short, which is blowing up everywhere, all over the interwebs, specifically on YouTube. And because of all the hype that is around AI and everything that comes with it, there's a lot of explanations that could fly over people's heads or make everyone more confused than you started with. So I'm going to take my time as much as I possibly can and break this down in a granular situation so that you can understand it walking away from this video. And I'm saying this as someone who lives and breathes development every single day. From there, I'll then show you how you can set this up in Cursor. And I have an honorable mention that I want to throw in as well, but that may be a separate video because there were a little bit of hiccups trying to get it to work. And from there, we'll use Cursor to build some really interesting and cool and fun AI agents. So with all that said, let's get into what Model Context Protocol is, aka MCP. So in order to truly understand what MCP servers are, we kind of have to take a look backward into history, into what we kind of already know. And that's REST APIs. And don't worry, if you're not a developer and you're trying to figure out what all this stuff is and you don't know what REST API actually is or means, let's take a visual look at what a REST API could actually look like. So REST stands for Representational State Transfer and was coined back in 2000 by Roy Fielding. What it looks like is something that you see on the screen, something similar to what you see on the screen now, which is a front end, which would be your computer or your mobile device, an HTTP call or action, a URL, and a server. So your front end is usually going to be something like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, Instagram, or something of that nature, which then is going to communicate through get, post, put, or delete to either grab information, change information, or delete information. Then it's going to be sent to a server that is going to more than likely, hopefully, be secure, ran by a company, yours or a third party, and has all of your data that is available for the web application or mobile app. So when you make a post on Facebook, for example, or you ask for or to see the comments inside of a actual post, what's happening under the hood is a post request is sent from the HTTP action through the URL and is going to the server as a request, which then is sent back to your device, your client as it would be called, your front end, and sends it or makes the new post or updates the database. So again, if you were making a post, it would create a brand new one, or if you were editing a post, it would create changes to that post. And if you're interested in all the things specific to MCP and what it all entails, you can check out the documentation given to us by Anthropic and also on Cursor as well, because Cursor has a little bit more specific information about MCPs directly or more specific to Cursor, but Anthropic is the place that this all originated, or this protocol all originated from. But the Cursor documentation goes over some of the use cases. So for example, you can connect to a database, which is what we're going to do. You can connect to Notion, GitHub, or Stripe if you are so inclined. And in terms of the architecture that you can find inside of an MCP, you can expect to see two different architectures here. So standard transport, which would mostly be done on your local machine. So that's what we're going to do here. But you can also have an SSE transport as well, which would be something that would be either on your local machine or remotely. So something that Anthropic would have, or OpenAI would have, or Stripe, or Facebook, or any other place, Neon, for example. You could see this in a bunch of different places. Then if you scroll down inside of Cursor's documentation, you'll see how to actually get set up with this. This is a basic view of what it will take to actually get started, but there's a bunch of other places that you can find MCP servers as well. One would be Smithery, the other would be MCP server or mcp.so, sorry. And then the final one that I'm going to talk about here would be awesome MCP servers as well, but there's a bunch of other resources out there. Now, awesome MCP servers has a lot of information that you can use. So browser automation, art and culture, command line servers, communication servers, customer data platforms, databases, all kinds of stuff that you need. But in order to actually get this running, you're going to need to have node.js installed on your computer before you do anything, because most of the commands all run from npx, which is a protocol for Node. If you don't already have Node installed on your computer and you're not a technical inclined person that is watching this, by all means use the nodejs.org site to download Node in its latest version or latest stable version. If you're slightly more technical inclined though, and or you're using but if you're slightly more technical inclined though, I would say use NVM or Node Version Manager, because it's a little bit more pliable in terms of the things that you can do with it, going back and forth between versions, especially if the version that you're currently working with isn't supported anymore, or there might be a server that might need a legacy version of Node that you need to go back and grab, and Node Version Manager gives you the ability to do that. My personal preference is to use WSL with Node Version Manager in all cases and purposes, but if you're not using WSL on a Windows machine, that's fine. You can still do this, but again, you can go directly here if you don't have Node installed on your computer at all. Okay, so I've been talking and rambling a lot. Let's go ahead and open up Cursor. Sometimes you may run into some hiccups in terms of this actually working right off, but for the most part, it does work the first time that you open it. But if something does happen and it doesn't open, for example, for me, Firecrawl sometimes is hit or miss, go ahead and refresh or hit the refresh button, and that should turn green for you here. The last time that I opened server sequential thinking, it completely borked on me and went completely red, and when I opened it again, it just worked. So sometimes these can literally be hit or miss. You might have to close things or open Cursor a few different times to get it to actually work. What we're going to actually use in this example will be Firecrawl, and I'm going to go ahead and search for all the Marvel characters, because I'm a Marvel person, and Marvel's API and documentation, although it's there, it is not the best thing to actually use. So I'm going to pseudo make my own. But we're going to use Firecrawl to actually get this done. And inside of Cursor, what we're going to need to do, I'm going to clear all this out. And let me just go ahead back in here. Oh, by the way, there is a Docker version of this as well, but I haven't been able to find the tools for this. It does connect to the Docker MCP servers or MCP server as the client, but it doesn't necessarily bring over all of the tools yet. As you can see down here, there's a few errors that are I'm still trying to figure out where those are coming from, but at least for right now, it does say that it connects, but it doesn't bring any tools. So that's something that I'm going to be investigating for the next couple of days. If you already know how to do that and you're using WSL, please leave a comment down below and let me know, because I am very curious as to why that's not bringing any tools, especially if you're watching this and you know someone, or you currently are on the Docker team or on the Cursor team. And yeah, I'd love to know. But to get here, if you're on a Windows machine, what you're going to want to do to get to where we just were, I should say, what you're going to want to do is go to File and then Preferences and then Cursor Settings. If you're on a Mac, you're going to want to go to your Apple icon, look for, I think it's Settings, or I think it's still Preferences, but it'll be in the Apple icon. And then you're going to want to look for Preferences or something to that nature, and then Cursor Settings. From there, you want to go to MCP, and I thought I had thrown all this out, but I guess I didn't. So let's go ahead and throw it out now. And we're going to need to look for Firecrawl here. Then go into the first option and you'll want to go over to content and scroll down just a little bit. And we're going to need to insert these values here. So the name, the command, and then this is the actual command that you'll want to use. If you're on a Windows machine though, you'll want to use this. So this is the one that I'm going to use because I'm on a Windows machine, even though I'm using WSL. So Windows subsystem for Linux. Even though I'm using Windows subsystem for Linux, I'm still going to need to use this version of this command to actually get this to run. It's very simple and easy to actually get up and going. So let's go back into Cursor. And what we first need to add here will be a set of brackets and then MCP servers. So this is standard JSON. Then what we're going to use will be the MCP, MCP server firecrawl. We'll then need to add our command. And that is going to be this command that is over here. So cmd/c set firecrawl API, your API key there, and then npx/y firecrawl MCP. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and bring it on over here. Now, for security reasons, I'm going to delete or not show my API, or my API key, but I'll probably roll it over anyway later on, so you guys won't need to see that. But I'm going to go ahead and grab my API key and throw it on in here. So let me grab that really quick. And that's pretty much it for Firecrawl, that is. The next, or let's go ahead and make sure that this actually works first before we move on to the next MCP server. So from here, all we really need to do is go ahead and hit save, and we should be able to see an MCP server Firecrawl show up right there. Cool. So you can see that it has all the different tools that we would need or that are available from Firecrawl. So scraping, mapping, crawling, all kinds of things. And then go ahead and, assuming that you have this turned to agent, go ahead and type in, let's say, for example, look for Avengers comics and characters from marvel.com/characters. Okay. Again, giving me more information about what it's doing and where. So it's going through the characters and looking for Avengers. So I told it to go to characters, but not Avengers. So it's going where I want it to. And then from here, look again for characters in the official list of Avengers. Limit to 5. Again, we have more Avengers information, so on screen. And this is from the actual movies, not from the comics. So this is slightly off, but I'll let it cook a little bit. And then there we go. So we have Iron Man, who was the first Avenger or at least the first Avenger on screen, that is. Then we got Captain America and a bunch of different others from here. Okay. So now let's go ahead and add Neon. So we'll say Neon command CMD, and again, this is because I have to use this because I'm on a Windows machine. Args /C npx-y at neon database/mcp server -neon start. Oops. And then That would then need my API key. So I'm going to grab that. I'll blur it out, but I'll roll it over after the video anyway. So it should be good either way. I'll grab that, put that right over here. And if I go ahead and save this, that should give me Neon back here as well. So if I want to create a database from all of these characters, now I can. So I can go here into my agent and say, with these characters, create SQL files to add to the Neon database. All right, so now we can see that it did have some errors, but it figured it out. And now we have the ability, or we could, if we wanted to, use this Avenger schema file that it created here to go ahead and then create a database for us to make this a little bit less anticlimactic. I actually went ahead and did this beforehand, and it's still creating, by the way. So I'm going to grab that off screen and bring it on screen really quick. I could go ahead and let this run over on the database, but it's, without looking at it, I don't know if it's actually what I want. However, I did run this a little bit earlier, and I'm going to bring that on screen now to actually show what it actually did. So it creates the affiliations, the character affiliations, character creators, powers, characters, creators, and powers, and all that kind of stuff in separate tables, fairly in a civilized manner in terms of what you would expect for it to do. So you have your defenders, Nelson and Murdoch, Daily Bugle. So all of those are specifically Spider-Man and Daredevil. If I go to the characters table, we got Black Widow, Captain America, Daredevil, Iron Man, Kingpin, Spider-Man, and Thor. And this specifically, so this is what we did on screen here. But if I go back to what I was working on earlier, let me go back to my history. It's this one. So if I go back into this earlier conversation that I was having with the agent, I did tell it to go ahead and create the tables and all that kind of stuff into the Neon database. If I wanted it to do the same thing here, I could go ahead and say create another project, use the Avengers migrations, all that kind of stuff inside of these specific tables. Am I going to do that? Maybe I might use that. I might use this variation over the variation that I already have, depending on what the actual thing looks like. But I haven't looked over the code in terms of what it actually needs to do and all that kind of stuff yet. And I would advise everyone to do exactly that. But now you can see that there's a lot of power inside of MCP servers, and you can connect a lot of different tools just inside of Cursor, making everything a lot easier to manage and have it standardized across a bunch of different tools so that you can take, let's say, for example, the Firecrawl tool and then make a database from things that you scraped from a website inside of a database on Neon, and then you can go and off to the races, create an API or whatever you need to do. Literally, the world is your oyster at this point to do whatever you need to do. So with all that said, now you can see hopefully that MCPs are crazy fun and a lot of things can happen with this technology. I'm curious to know what you guys think about this. And if you want to see more information or more tutorials like this, leave that down in the comments. And until next time, y'all be smooth, blurred out.